Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all. My name is Anjali Rao, and it is my great pleasure to be with you today for this fabulous chat that we're about to have on AI and styling the runway. So, AI and fashion. So one is all about creativity and flair and looking fabulous, and the other one is about machine learning and algorithms and lots of data crunching. But AI now is predicting trends faster than Kim Kardashian can hashtag her OOTD, which is really fast.
Yeah.
So Carol Hilsom, co-founder of Studio 3, a consultancy for startups and investors in the fashion, beauty, and lifestyle sectors. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely fantastic to be here. I'm really
Please
excited.
give Carol a big hand.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk about the fashion scene. Talk us through what makes it unique when considering AI strategy.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting sector in the creative type of industries, very connected to other creative sectors as well. And I think there is huge potential for AI, and I think all of us who love fashion, buy fashion, can ourselves think about some of the use cases with AI within the sector. But the sector itself is quite unique. It has some very interesting characteristics that actually make it quite challenging to build in this area. I think we can all imagine who dreams of having a personal stylist chatbot that knows everything about you, that either makes fashion super easy for you if you don't really enjoy, or really inspirational for you if you love the styling and inspirational aspect of it. We can all imagine having that in our phones, in our lives, etc. But the challenge within building an AI in fashion is due to, as I say, these quite particular ways of the sector. Now, there's probably 4 key ones that are worthwhile touching on. One, as you said, it's a very creative industry. Of course, it all starts with someone designing something beautiful. And whether that's culturally influenced or it's coming from their own design principles, etc. But essentially, someone is designing the dress. But actually, what underpins the fashion industry is a very, very complex business model and a very complex route to matching up supply with demand. So, one, you're trying to predict the demand for fashion, and that can be influenced both by lots of micro trends, but lots of macro trends as well, many of which you have very little influence on. So, for example, Netflix might produce a series, and that might somehow have a very strong satirical element to it, which may influence how people are dressing suddenly in the industry. It's almost impossible for a fashion company to understand all the different influences to the demand for the items that will be produced. The other thing that's a huge complexity to it is it takes a long time to create those fashion elements. And we all can see that there's some great models which are reducing the time of producing the fashion. And the reason that they are then so successful and so heralded in the sector is otherwise you're having to produce products maybe even 6 months before, at least like 3 months before, and then trying to match that to a very volatile demand for fashion. So it's a very, very difficult industry. It's one of those industries that looks very glamorous, but on the under the hood, it's hugely data driven, and you're trying to match up this formula, which is very challenging. Now, of course, what brands, the epitome of brands, what they try and do is create a brand presence that puts their demand on an evergreen level. So puts their demand on a level that isn't so influenced by everything that's going on in society, and you have this level of evergreen demand. And the examples of that are brands like Chanel, for example, which will just always have a level of consistent demand and brand understanding. And you have to do that with really great brand marketing, which is another area which I think AI has an opportunity. 2 other slight challenges within the sector itself is IP laws. I see loads and loads of startups in the AI fashion space. Most of them have some level of infringement on IP laws because the IP landscape within fashion is very stringent and often misunderstood. So someone that initially designs the product will always own the IP for that product, the maker's IP of that product. Then you have different levels of other creative IPs, such as pattern IP, color IP, etc. as well. And actually, there needs to be a lot more understanding about IP infringement and what the opportunity is within AI models. And then the last point would be it's a big sector, 1.7 trillion of a sector. Not one of the mega sectors, but not very small either. It's a big number. Of that, probably about 30% is the luxury sector. They spend around 1%, almost a negligible amount, on our R&D. So it's a huge sector that spends almost nothing on its own technology, innovation, etc. So it's completely dependent on external partnerships, external capital to build some of this innovation. Even the current innovation, even around e-commerce, for example, even that, they're completely really dependent on external parties to help them evolve that. So it's a difficult model, difficult business model. There's IP complexity, and there's very limited internal sector funding to build that. So that's some of the limitations, I would say, in terms of setting the context of AI within fashion.
So we all know that AI doesn't always get it right.
Yeah.
And God forbid we should end up looking, bad. What are the big potential hurdles, do you think, for using AI in demand forecasting?
Yes, I think it's for me, having professionally worked in the industry, but educationally worked in computer science and AI, etc. I think it's a real interesting merge and a really interesting topic from an AI perspective, because there's definitely logic in the demand forecasts. There's definitely patterns of behavior, and there's those that you can then utilize in forecasting models. But then there is this irreverence to fashion and this nuance and this multi-aspect influence. It's very hard to figure out about exactly what data you need, exactly how the model needs to interpret that, exactly the different aspects and how the different these different elements influence each other. So there is huge opportunities within demand forecasting. Companies have always done demand forecasting to different levels. They've always used data for that. But historically, they've essentially just used transactional data, quite a simple data set. At most, you're building a sort of mid-level machine learning model to interpret it. Now, what they're able to do is, of course, use lots of other different data sets. There's a problem with them being proprietary data sets and really no one having access to all the data that they need. But so, for example, they would be able to use their own buying behavior data, but then, of course, maybe be able to use social media trends and influence and seeing what's going on there, where social media is not only influencing shopping behavior now, but also selling products as well. TikTok Shop, for example, is the biggest growing retailer in the world. So they can use all of this to have just multifaceted models now for demand. However, exactly how all that mashed together to really have a true understanding of how people are shopping and how people are influenced, we're still some way away from that. So I think the challenge is you could probably do maybe 60% of accuracy in demand forecasting, but that 40% that you can't quite understand because we haven't really unlocked the formula of true influence of why people buy certain items and how many and how long the trend and how long the demand remains for an item. That's the very interesting part, and that's what I think we'll really see emerging over the next few years.
Super quickly, because we are almost out of time, but I really want to get your thoughts on what's next for AI in fashion?
What is next? So as I say, I think there's a huge opportunity. We can all see it. We can all understand what a great opportunity this could be. I think there needs to be a lot more understanding around IP laws. There has to be a lot more alliance on data sets as well, not just for the sector, but with other really connected sectors like social media, etc. And ultimately, we've seen a lot of lots of companies in this space. Most of them are building very small LLMs, not really LLMs, very, very small models, or very narrow applications. And what I would love to see more of is a really collective momentum around building the LLM for fashion. And I don't think it has to just be about fashion, it can be about homeware and beauty, etc. And that can really double the market value that we could be building into, because it is a huge industry, but it really needs external capital, external skill sets to build these type of models and future applications to really help it transition into a very necessary and much needed AI future. So I'd love to talk to anyone who's interested in that kind of thinking and that opportunity as well.
Such an interesting tack on everything that we're talking about here, Carol. And if AI can predict how often I need new shoes, the whole thing's going to blow up. Just putting it out there. But thank you so much. It was marvelous to talk to you. Carol Hilson, everyone.
Thank you. A huge pleasure. Thank you so much.
And now I'm delighted to say that you are next to hear from Dr. Hadil Ayub. Enjoy your day, everyone.